Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Lord.
Hallelujah. We thank the Most High Yahuwah for allowing us to come out and gather today as we come together to study and pray that Yahuwah give us understanding and enlighten us in His Word. And at this time, we are going to go ahead and get started with our service. We're going to have the blowing of the shofar by our senior Moreh, Kasada by Yashra'al. After he blows the shofar, we will have the prayer by our key Slow-Mo, and then we will go into the lesson. Hallelujah. At this time, we're going to turn and face the east, and we're going to look towards Jerusalem as we pray to the Father.
Before your throne, just thank you, praise you for another set apart Shabbat. I pray that you write the words that you want Moreh to speak on our hearts, and you let us keep it through the week. Thank you for keeping us through the week, that way we can make it here. And for those who couldn't make it here, I pray that they'll be able to make it next week. Praise your set apart name. Hallelujah.
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 Shabbat shalom once again, everybody. And
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Just want to say thank you for coming out to be a part of this set apart day. And without any further ado, we are going to get into our lesson. Our lesson is the Lamb. We're continuing that series for about another week. I don't know, this might be the last lesson before we go into Isaiah 53, but we are going to do that. And today we're going to take a closer look at the Most High set apart festivals, or the Moedim, to show and get a look at something. There's a lot of discussion about Torah, and very few people realize that at Sinai there was something that took place that brought about something else. Yet at the same time, a lot of things that we've read about, we fail to realize that most of the things Yahuwah instituted as far as Israel and the things you see them keeping under the book of the law, he had already set forth and laid out a plan before the book of the law. And most people don't realize how much stuff that we do and things that happen was pre-book of the law. So, without any further ado, we're going to ask our key, Lebro Yaakov, to get Luke 22 and 15.
Luke 22, verse 15. And he said unto them, with desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof, until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Yahuwah. And he took the cup, and gave thanks, and said, Take this, and divide it among yourselves. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine, until the kingdom of Yahuwah shall come. And he took bread, and gave thanks, and brake it, and gave unto them, saying, This is my body, which is given for you, this day in remembrance of me. Likewise, also the cup of after supper, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you. But behold, the hand of him that betrayeth me is with me on the table. And truly the Son of Man goeth, as it was determined, but woe unto that man by whom he is betrayed. And they began to inquire among themselves, which of them is it? Was that should do this thing?
That's good right there. So what we're seeing here, you have Hamashiach, Yahushua being betrayed. But it was saying he already knew that this time would be. We think it's something strange and unusual taking place with Judas. But it's not. Hamashiach was going to, he came to do just what he did. What Judas did, he was born to do. Now, but what we should look at and what should be noted and understood is that they are at what Moreh, or which Moreh? Pesach. And he desired to keep what? Pesach or Passover with them. Now, what you see here is Hamashiach is doing something. He's sharing what with them? The meal. Bread and what? Wine. This is also something we see with Melchizedek and who? Abraham. The same bread and wine. What was your question again?
No.
Oh, the same bread and wine. Now, the word bread, when we look at it, is translated from the Greek word artos. So, when you look at this word from the Greek, it normally means any kind of bread. So, but when we look at Hamashiach, there's something going on here. What, since he's the Passover lamb, what immediately takes place following Pesach? Y'all know this. What immediately takes place after Pesach, or what we would call Passover?
Them leaving out of Egypt? No?
No, I'm just talking about the festival of the Moedim itself. We have Pesach and we immediately go into what?
Feast of Sukkot or
After
the killing of the lamb? Unleavened bread?
Yeah, unleavened bread. So pay attention to the language of Hamashiach here. Read that once again.
Luke 22, verse 15. And he said unto them, With desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof, until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Yahuwah. And he took the cup, and gave thanks, and said, Take this, and divide it among yourselves. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine.
And do me one more favor. Go back up and read again.
15.
Yeah.
And he said unto them, With desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before
I have
I suffer.
desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. Go ahead.
For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof, until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Yahuwah.
He said, I will not do what?
And he took the cup, and gave thanks, and said, Take this, and divide it among yourselves. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine, until the kingdom of Yahuwah shall come. And he took bread, and gave thanks, and brake it, and gave unto them, saying, This is my body, which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me.
So what happens is that he took bread and broke it and gave it, and he said, This is my what?
Body.
This is my body. Being that Hamashiach was found blameless and sinless, and the bread is symbolic to he or him, what kind of bread do you think it probably was that they were eating? Because leaven is represents what?
Sin.
So is it fair to say that they more than likely had unleavened bread?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you don't find it strange? He said that when he talked about eating, he said what? In his cup, in
He brake it and gave it unto them, saying,
around Luke 53.
50.
Not Luke 53, but around verse 16.
For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof, until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Yahuwah.
He said, for I will not eat any more thereof until it be what? Fulfilled. Fulfilled where?
In the kingdom of
In the kingdom of Yahuwah. So we know what is taking place. Now we're going to go back in a few minutes back to Sinai. What happened at Sinai all is pertains to this as well. So is it fair to say that we know that when Abraham and Melchizedek met, they had bread and wine? We know that we've seen a pattern of what is called covenant confirming meals. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Being that the nation of Yashra'al are not under the covenant yet, being that his body was broken, his blood was shed for the New Testament or covenant, because the two are synonymous, is it possible that when he sits down and he tabernacles amongst Yashra'al in his Father's kingdom, is it possible that we will be having with the bride a covenant confirming meal? Remember we talked about the marriage supper of the Lamb, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Read that verse again.
16.
For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Yahuwah shall come.
And what did he say in verse read that verse 15 again. Was that verse 16?
Yeah, that was verse 16.
That was verse 18.
Yeah, that was verse 18 you read.
You remember 16?
16, yes.
For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of Yahuwah.
Until it be what? Fulfilled. What has to be fulfilled?
The covenant.
The marriage.
The marriage. But you know, that's why we're not under the covenant yet. And Moreh brought it out so beautifully when he was speaking of how, and I'm not going to get into a lesson he probably do in the future, in the near future, but the nation of Yashra'al failed to understand that there's a huge difference between a betrothal or to betroth and to be married. They're not one and the same. A betrothing or betrothal is something, it's a process of steps that lead to a marriage. And that's what the nation of Yashra'al, we don't understand. We have not been married yet. I think Moreh is comical the way he says it, but it's very eye-opening how he was saying Yahuwah brought Hamashiach's bride to the front door and ushered her straight out through the back door. She never resided at her father's house because of her disobedience and her idolatry and whoredom. So, all this is to be noted and understood. You have to have a good understanding of what's going on with Hamashiach and with the language that he's using when he talks about not drinking with them into the kingdom, not eating until all this is fulfilled in the kingdom. Because you have to realize there's something that takes place in the kingdom. What took place at Sinai? Was it not a betrothal?
Mm-hmm.
He betrothed Israel at Sinai.
Mm-hmm.
What also happened at Sinai? The covenant that they agreed to, they broke it at Sinai. Okay, let's go to Matthew 26 and 26.
Matthew 26, verse 26. And as they were eating, Yahuwah took bread and broke it. Yahusha took bread and broke it, and brake it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, Take it, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup, and gave thanks, and gave it to them, saying, Drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins.
He said, which is said for many for the remission of sin. Now, that's very important. This shedding of blood and breaking of the body, this language is being used for a reason. Read that last part of that verse again. Pay attention to what it says.
For this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remissions of sins.
Which is shed for many for the remission of sin. So, what sins would we be talking about here? Who are the many that this blood would need to be shared for?
All those who broke the covenant back in the garden, and the children of Yashra'al.
The children of Yashra'al, all those that were a part of what?
The original covenant.
Of the original covenant that was broken.
Right.
It was shed for the remission of sin, for many, for the remission of sin. So, we're still keeping this in perspective with Yahuwah, Yahusha, and the nation of Yashra'al. Now, when he speaks of his body being broken, what is he speaking of?
His death.
His death? And what way?
He's foreshadowing his death, in which he was, dying to, I don't want to say a cliche thing, but to basically be able to restore Yashra'al as a nation.
Right. So I like that. So what we're looking at here is at the Pesach or the Passover, something took place. You had 3 people in position on these trees.
Right.
So, being that the Shabbat was going to end, they wanted to make sure, because they couldn't have anyone nailed to a stake or a tree on Shabbat. So, the Roman soldiers proceeded to do something. What did they do?
Well, they began to break the legs of the other two, the two thieves.
Yeah.
Thieves and the other guy committed whatever sin he committed, and because that would kill them. They would automatically die. So I guess the part that would be broken would be his skin, because his body was never broken.
Thank you. That's what I'm getting at. His body or his bones were never broken. We know the prophecies that already prophesied that say his bones should not be broken. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
So, when he said, "This is my body," he's talking about what?
His flesh.
His flesh being broken. And how was it broken?
By the stabbing of the spears.
By the what?
The
Stabbing of the spears.
the nailing of the hands.
And also with the beating of the whip or the cat of nine tails that they used.
And the crown,
Right.
the crown of
So
thorns.
his flesh was ripped and parted. Am I right?
Mhm.
So that brought forth what?
The breaking of the bread. Is that what you're talking
That was the breaking of the bread.
about?
But also, when your flesh is ripped and parted, it brings forth what?
Blood.
Blood. Now, all of this terminology is used for something.
Mhm.
Because something happened at Sinai. And we can go all the way back before Sinai and see something else happen. With Abraham, was there any time where Yahuwah spoke with Abraham that there was a breaking of the flesh and where blood was brought forth?
Say that again?
Was there any time with Abraham, was there a breaking of the flesh, a parting of the flesh, blood being brought forth?
Yeah.
When did it take place?
When you made sacrifices at, when he first sacrificed to Yahuwah, when they first entered the covenant together,
Thank you. When they first entered what?
the covenant.
When they first entered the covenant. That's all the way back to Abraham. So you see a parting or tearing or dividing of the flesh. Moving from Abraham, now we can go to Sinai, the children of Israel. What happened at Sinai?
Then Moses killed bulls and goats.
Okay, then was there ever a parting of flesh, blood being brought forth?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It was. It was at Sinai. So what took place with the blood at Sinai?
Moses sprinkled it on the people after they agreed to the covenant, and when they sprinkled the blood, then that sealed the covenant.
Okay, then you notice that when Moses took the blood from the sacrifice, what did he do? He sprinkled first the what? Book of the covenant. At that time, was there anything such thing as the book of the law? Can we go find anywhere in scripture where he sprinkled the book of the law with blood at any time?
No.
So, the blood that was sprinkled on the book of the covenant was also sprinkled on who? The people, the nation of Yashra'al. So, do y'all see the pattern? You have Abraham, who was met by, we can say Shem, because Shem was the Melchizedek at that time, and he met Abraham with what?
The book of the covenant?
Bread and wine. Then we see Abraham enters into covenant. We can also see where there's a covenant confirming meal. At Yashra'al at Sinai, the book of the covenant is sprinkled with blood. The nation of Yashra'al is sprinkled with blood. Then what happens next? Do they not sit down and have a covenant meal? Now you have Hamashiach, who's been the Passover or Pesach lamb, shed his blood. His body is broken. His flesh is torn. Now all of a sudden, you have him enter into what? A covenant confirming meal with the Talmudim. Because you know the 12 was a representation of Yashra'al. So, what we see here You don't see how everything correlates and pertaining to what? The book of the covenant, everything is taking you all the way back to Abraham. Why is that so important? You can never read what any of this stuff here took place with the book of the law. Let's go over look at some. Let's go to Exodus, Shemot 12. No, before we go there, let's go to Leviticus 23 and 5.
Leviticus 23 verse 5.
Leviticus 23, verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month, at even in Yahuwah's Passover, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto Yahuwah. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. And the first day ye shall have a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah 7 days. And the 7th day is an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein.
Okay. Now, let's go over to Exodus 12 and 6. Remember, that's Leviticus 23 and 5.
Exodus 12, verse 6. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Yashra'al shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper doorpost of the house, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast it with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain unto the morning. And that which remaineth of it unto the morning ye shall burn it with fire. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord, or it is Yahuwah's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Mizraim this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Mizraim.
Okay, so what we're looking at here, this is the first Melchizedek Passover right here. Before you even get to Exodus, before even after the breaking of the covenant, even with the golden calf, this had already been established under another priestly order, not under the Levitical system. And this is what I'm trying to show people. All this stuff that we've been reading about, for the most part, it has already taken place way before a Levitical system or order is instituted. Way before. And this is very important that we understand and see this. And this was on the 14th day of what month?
The month of was the first month?
Yeah, the 14th month of Abib.
Yeah, first month. Yeah, month of Abib.
You notice in some of your book it'll say Nisan.
What's that mean?
That's where so-called Jewish scholars have gotten their hands on the book, and now all of a sudden you see what? A Hebrew word abid, that's being what? Replaced by a Greek word named after a Babylonian or Assyrian Babylonian deity. Now you know if you go look up at the Strongs, a lot of places gonna give you, don't they give you Nissan, Moreh?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. For the month of the bee.
For the month of
Yeah,
Abib.
there's another one. Yeah, that also Nissan is also called.
But Nissan is an Assyrian Babylonian deity. So when we look at this, we see that Passover, Pesach, was already instituted way before the book of the law. You're going to see the Moedim already what? Instituted before when? The book of the law.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Shemot, the 24th chapter. We're going to start at the first verse. Well, Exodus, yeah, 24 and 7.
Where you gotta get more right?
Shemot, Exodus 24 and 7.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
You still want to start at the first one?
Hmm.
You still want to start at the first one?
Yeah, first one.
Exodus.
We're going to start at the first verse of, I should say 24 and 1.
Exodus, or Shemot, 24, verse 1. And he said unto Moses, Come up unto Yahuwah, thou and Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Yashra'al, and worship ye all afar off. And Moses alone shall come near Yahuwah, but they shall not come nigh, neither shall the people go up with him. And Moses came and told the people all the words of Yahuwah, and all the judgments. And all the people answered with one voice, and said, All the words which Yahuwah has said will we do.
Okay? What has just happened right there? There has been what? A proposal,
And they accepted it.
and they accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going.
Exodus 24, verse 4. And Moses wrote all the words of Yahuwah, and rose up early in the morning, and builded an altar under the hill, and 12 pillars, according to the 12 tribes of Yashra'al. And he sent young men of the children of Yashra'al, which offered burnt offerings, and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto Yahuwah. And Moses took half of the blood.
So they read go back to that previous verse.
24 verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Read that.
Mm-hmm.
And he sent young men of children of Yashra'al, which offered burnt offerings, and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto Yahuwah.
Said young men, burnt offerings and sacrifices. Now we have what? The pardoning of what? Flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have the blood that comes from that flesh being broken up pardoned. Now go ahead.
Exodus 24 verse 6. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people. And they said, All that Yahuwah has said we will do, and be obedient.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and said,
Moses took the blood and he did what? Sprinkled it on the people.
and said, Behold the blood of the covenant.
Behold the blood of the what?
Covenant.
Is this not the same language Hamashiach was using?
Mm-hmm.
When we open up, go ahead.
Which Yahuwah hath made with you concerning all these words. Then went up Moses, and Aaron, and Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Yashra'al. And they saw Yahuwah of Yashra'al, and there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were the body of heaven in his cleanness. And upon the nobles of the children of Yashra'al he laid not his hand. Also they saw Yahuwah, and did eat and drink. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, Come up to me in the mount.
Okay, stop right there. So what just happened? After they were sprinkled with blood, the covenant with blood ratified. Now we have what? A covenant confirming meal. Do we not see that pattern all the way from the beginning? From with Abraham, all the way what children of Israel at Sinai, all the way up until Hamashiach. A proposal, an acceptance, blood ratification, and the operative word in here is what? Covenant confirming meal. Not at any time in history or throughout the Hebrew scriptures do you ever see this take place with the book of the law. Never. That's why I said a lot of times we have to take that word law and look at it. That word is just too loosely thrown around. And we only get that concept of law through a Greek understanding.
Right.
Through a Greek understanding. Torah has always been looked at as what? Instructions. Instructions for who? A particular body of people, also known as what? The bride of Yahuwah. They were instructions. That's why the marriage covenant itself that was given at Sinai, pre-book of the law, it was also Torah. I don't know why most people think that the commandments that he gave Moshe was not Torah. It was Torah before the book of the law. But it was something given based off what? Faith. There was instruction given to people who were supposed he wanted to be a righteous people. Someone that would just walk in the love and be obedient. When it came to what? The book of the law, why was the book of the law given? It was only given because the people were hard-headed, stiff-necked, and rebellious. It was imposed on them. He didn't give them a choice. It was imposed on them. It was forced on them. Moses said, what did Moses say? All day long, these people what? He said they are hard-headed, stiff-necked, rebellious people. He said they won't hear me. They don't want to hear my words. That's why the book of the law was imposed and forced on them, because of the heart. But the Most High, he was trying to show them love and give them an opportunity. And like I say, it was a reason why he wrote the commandments on stone in the first place. Because the stones were what? Symbolic to what? Yashra'al, stony heart.
That's very good.
These people, I would say Negroes, they were something else. All of this because of a stony heart. A heart so bad that no sooner than he entered into covenant with, it wasn't a good 40 days. They had done what?
They created an idol.
Had to committed idolatry, whoredom, and broken the covenant just that fast.
40 days.
Now, Yahuwah has to enact and do something that he promised he was going to do in the first place. And this is what I'm saying, and this is why I'm saying. When somebody tells you that the nation of Yashra'al is the suffering servant spoken of in Isaiah 53, they have no earthly idea of what they're talking about, or they don't have understanding of what they're reading. Now, I did say that it speaks of the nation of Israel being a suffering servant, because you can read Isaiah 53 and see where Isaiah 53 speaks of two suffering servants. One's the nation of Yashra'al, but it's very limited. But it goes into particulars when it comes to the suffering servant. And I said, when we get into that lesson, we're going to look at these English words that we're reading, go back to the Hebrew, and we're going to see how they pertain to sacrifices and offerings. And then you tell me if that's the nation of Yashra'al. Because you can't read anywhere in the scripture where the nation of Yashra'al was an alam. Any of these sacrifices or offering. You have to show me that. But if I can pinpoint and point to an individual who fulfilled these things, then we can identify who Isaiah 53 is speaking of. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when we look at this language and you look at what's going on here, you see that Hamashiach is fulfilling something very important, especially when it comes to the nation of Yashra'al. And this is why I'm saying that there's no way you can properly understand this book if you can't see the importance of the book of the covenant versus the book of the law. He told you the book of the law was to be what? A tutor or schoolmaster until, operative word being what? Until the seed or promise of the seed should come. Did he come?
Yes.
So if he came, that means something else fixing to take place. Let's go read something right quick. Let's go to Galatians 3 and 15. Now listen to, start at verse 14. Galatians, the 3rd chapter, verses 14 and 15.
Third chapter,
Mm-hmm.
verse 14.
Yeah, verse 14 and 15.
Galatians 3, verse 14. That the beruking of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Yahusha HaMashiach, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. Brethren, I speak after the manner of men, though it be but a man's covenant, yet if it be confirmed, no man disnulleth or addeth thereof.
Now, let's read that 14th verse again.
That the beruking of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Yahusha HaMashiach.
That the Baruch and blessings of what? Abraham
might come on the Gentiles through Yahusha HaMashiach.
might come on the Gentiles. Through what? Hmm?
Yahushua Mashiach.
Yeah, I wanted him to read it.
Yahusha HaMashiach. That we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith.
Okay, now, before people take this the wrong way and think this is speaking of anybody other than Israel, let's go to Romans 9, verse 4 and 5. Matter of fact, just 1 through 5. Because automatically when it talks about the blessings of Abraham coming to the Gentiles, all of a sudden everybody's mind knocked down. This is for the other nations. And I just want, while we're being out here on social media by way of Comcast and all, let me clarify this. This is not other nations. Not anywhere in scriptures where you see he entered into a covenant with the nations. Not a marriage covenant anyway. Romans 9, verse 1 through 5. Go ahead,
Romans 9, verse 1. I say the truth in Hamashiach. I lie not. My conscience also bearing me witness in the set apart spirit, that I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart. For I could wish that myself were accursed from Hamashiach for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh.
Shows that my brethren, kinsmen of the flesh, we know he's talking about everything he's speaking of, my brethren and kinsmen of the flesh. He's talking, this is a nationality, a bloodline. Go ahead.
Who are Yashra'al.
Who are Israelites. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now listen to the next one. What did we just read in Galatians? We read about what? The blessings of Abraham. And we read about the promises. Okay, go.
To whom pertaineth the adoption, and the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of Yahuwah, and the promises.
Read that again.
Who are Yashra'al, to whom pertaineth the adoption, and the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of Yahuwah, and the promises.
My brethren, my kinsmen of the flesh, who are Israelites. To whom pertains what? The covenants? Then he also said the promises? In whom Hamashiach came what?
And the service of Yahuwah, and the promises.
Keep reading.
You want me to go back up? Yes, sir.
Just keep reading
Okay.
the promise.
Whose are the fathers, and whom, as concerning the flesh, Hamashiach came.
There you go. The covenants, the promise, in whom concerning the flesh, Hamashiach came. Hamashiach came for what? Israel. Why did he come to Israel? What had happened with the nation of Yashra'al that they were in need of Hamashiach to come? He came to restore them. What did he come to restore?
The broken covenant.
He came to restore the nation of Yashra'al back where? Under the original covenant. The covenant that he died for. He did not die for the book of the law. He died for the book of the covenant. How do we know this? Matter of fact, I think I know I forgot my scripture. Where's that scripture where he tells Moses to put the book of the law in the side of the ark? And put the book of the law in the covenant, inside the ark.
Deuteronomy 31:26.
Deuteronomy 31:26.
31.
Oh no, we do it then.
Deuteronomy
31:26.
Deuteronomy 31, verse 26. Take this book of the law and put it inside the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, your Elohim, that it may be there for a witness against thee. For I know thy rebellion and thy stiff neck. Behold, while I am yet alive with you this day, ye have been rebellious against Yahuwah, and how much more after my death? Gather unto me all the elders of your tribes, and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to record against them. For I know that after my death ye will utterly corrupt yourselves, and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you. and evil will befall you in the latter days, because ye will do evil in the sight of Yahuwah, to provoke him to anger through the work of your hands.
Okay, now read that one more time.
Take this book of the law and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, your Elohim, that it may be there for a witness against thee. For I know thy rebellion.
Okay, do me a favor. Go up before that.
25.
Yeah.
That Moses commanded the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, saying, take this book of the law and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah thy Elohim, that it may be there for a witness against thee. For I know thy rebellion and thy stiff neck. Behold, while I am yet alive with you this day, ye have been rebellious against Yahuwah. And how much more after my death? Gather unto me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to record against them. For I know that after my death you will utterly corrupt yourselves, and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days, because ye will do evil in the sight of Yahuwah, and provoke him to anger through the work of your hands.
Okay, then there was another part I was looking for.
Go back up.
What chapter was that?
31.
126.
I know that's one where he tells them, where he talks about putting the book of the covenant. He speaks of the book of the law and the book of the covenant. Okay, so when it talks about 21, so take this book of the law and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah your Elohim, that it may be there for a witness against thee. It's for I know thy rebellion and thy stiff neck. Behold, while I am yet alive with you this day, ye have been rebellious against Yahuwah Elohim, and how much more after my death? He said, gather unto me all the elders of the tribe and the officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to record against them. He says, for I know that after my death ye will what? Utterly corrupt yourselves and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you. In which way did he command them? And evil will befall you in the latter days, because you will what? Do evil in the sight of Yahuwah, to provoke him to anger through the works of your hands. It is said, Moses spake to the ears of all the congregation of Israel the words of this song until they were ended. Now, we see something take place at the Pesach of Hamashiach. What happens when he gives up the ghost? After his body is torn, his blood is shed, what takes place? Because remember, he said, let the heavens and the earth do what? Bear witness.
Mm-hmm.
What would it be bearing witness of?
He is the sacrifice of the, so there could be a restoration of the covenant.
Right. So what happens here, remember, He just spoke to them about what? The book of the law, put it in the covenant, let the heavens and the earth bear witness.
Right.
Why is he speaking to them concerning the book of the law? Because of their disobedience, they're hard-headed and stiff-necked. Now, why is he saying that? Because they had previous done what?
Broken covenant.
Broken the covenant. So when Hamashiach comes and he dies, does not the heavens and the earth do the very thing that Yahuwah said? Don't it bear witness?
Mm-hmm.
What happens in the heavens?
Turn dark.
It turned dark as what?
It's
What
not.
we, right, but it wasn't in the broad daylight,
Yeah.
and it turns dark.
And then an earthquake.
What else? There's a blood moon, because it's about speaking how the moon turned red, or as they say, hemorrhage, and there's what? Earthquake. That's the heavens and the earth bearing witness of something. That his blood was being shed because now something else is being instituted. The book of the law had its place. It has its position. It was for a reason. Don't we know after those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, all that blood that was shed, all those animals that were slain, don't you know the nation of Yashra'al should have learned a lesson? They should have gotten something. They should have learned something from that. Because remember, who was it supposed to be being slain? No, it was the nation of Yashra'al supposed to be being slain. Remember now, Hamashiach told Moses, he said, I'm going to kill all of these.
Mm-hmm.
He said, what I'll do, I'll take your seed and do what?
Make a new,
And make them people from your loins, from your seed.
Right.
But Moses mediated and interceded on behalf of who? The nation of Yashra'al. So now you have a system instituted of all of these what? Innocent animals being slain, cut to pieces for what?
for the sin of
For the sin of a guilty people. So now it takes us back to the original covenant. When that covenant was established between the father and Abraham, you know both parties take part in a covenant or a pact. Before either one of them could walk those pieces, Hamashiach took it upon himself. I'll walk it, because guess what? If whoever sets that covenant, whoever walks the covenant, those parties are responsible for what? The death position that goes along with that covenant. Hamashiach was not going to allow that position to fall on the father, because remember, Abraham couldn't have walked the covenant. Why? Wasn't he in a trance, or wasn't he asleep?
Yeah.
But someone else walked it. Who was that flaming light? Or that lamp?
Mashiach.
It was Hamashiach. He took on the death position for both parties. So now, what he's saying, Father, let me be responsible. As the suffering servant, or him being the Father's son, by right, he had the right. He could take on that position, or the Father could give his son to take on that position.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this is going to take us to what? Isaiah 53 and the suffering servant. He came to fulfill a role that automatically makes him what? The suffering servant.
Yeah.
And he's suffering why? And on behalf of who?
Yashra'al.
The nation of Yashra'al.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you know, for all those centuries and over 1,000 years almost. Let me tell you something. Every one of those animals, when they presented that animal to the priest, it was just like me and Moreh was talking. Like they were walking to that priest with Hamashiach in their arms, saying, "Here." That's how detrimental it was what they had done. That's why he even said, every time you sin, you do what? He said, you crucify me afresh. It's him being offered. Every time let me tell you how wicked we were. We knew we had a trump card in our back pocket called atonement. The nation of Yashra'al would live so wicked, they would live wicked and unrighteously an entire year. Because they knew what was coming up.
Day of Atonement.
The Day of Atonement. It got so bad that the doggone sacrificing the animals and stuff, that the scapegoat, they wouldn't even act right no more. They had done so wrong, it got to the point, so I read one, they had to throw them over the cliff. Because the animal had to got in mind, these Negroes here, let me tell you, so it ain't even worth it. Escape. Why am I doing all this? Why am I carrying all this? And these folk here won't even do right. It was just that bad. So Hamashiach, he takes on this death positioning. Now, when it comes time to ratify this covenant, now Hamashiach, he realizes the burden that he has taken on. He realized that this is a heavy feat right here. This is something right here that anytime you're under so much stress and such a burden, your sweat becomes drops of blood. That is weighing very heavy on an individual. It got so bad, so did not he go to the Father and say, "Father, if it be your will, do what? Remove this. Remove this cup." And we went into another lesson earlier about what kind of cup, what was he talking about when he said remove this cup? Because Hamashiach, what did he say? He told you what kind of cup it was. He said, take you what? This cup or this blood and drink you all of it? For this is what?
Testament of my blood.
The blood what? What was shed for you? For the what? For the remission and the New Testament, he said. We know that's covenant. It was a betrothal. All of this suffering, Isaiah 53 just depicts it so beautifully, and we're going to see that when we get into it. All of this suffering is for the nation of Yashra'al. A man who loves a woman so much that he's willing to die, give his life for her. All at the same time, knowing that she don't care anything about him.
It's hard.
All the while knowing that this woman doesn't care about him at all. But because he loves her, because he loves his father, I'm willing to take on this death position. I'm willing to die for her. How do we know he's willing? He said, nevertheless, not my will. His father said, but let yours be done. Let yours be done. It was all about the Father. But the Father gave what? His Son. To redeem. How are we redeemed?
His blood.
Through his blood. To restore. How are we restored? Through his blood. And to reconcile. That's what this entire book is about. Redemption, restoration, and reconciliation. And how are we reconciled? Are we being reconciled back to Hamashiach, or are we being reconciled back to the Father?
To the Father.
It's to the Father. He's using his Son to give his life, to shed his blood, to bring what? The nation of Yashra'al back into covenant relationship with the Father. And y'all gonna tell me this man is not the suffering servant? You gotta be kidding me. You got to show me in this book where anybody else in Scripture did the things that he did and suffered the things that he suffered.
Within the 70 years of Daniel.
Okay, within the 70 years of Daniel. But outside of the 70 years of Daniel, we can't find no way about it in the book. Name me one person. That's why they, the sign was given. The prophets had already prophesied. Think about this. Muhammad, when they went to see John in prison, what did John ask his disciples to go do? He said, go and ask him, is he the one? Or should we look for another? He said, go and ask him, is he the one, or should we look for another? What was Hamashiach's response to that? What response did Hamashiach give Yehukanan's disciples or followers? Oh, y'all gonna really do that? Huh?
He said, can you put it one more time?
What did John's disciple? John sent his disciple to go ask Hamashiach if he's the one that they're looking for, or should they look for another?
And he said, you see the
He
blind
said, go.
receive sight.
He said, go back and tell John what?
You see the blind receive sight.
You see the blind receive sight.
I don't remember the rest.
Help him out, Moreh.
I was trying to even get the scripture for you.
The blind receive sight, the lame are walking, and some are being healed.
I'm gonna just go get it.
Yeah, there's one in Isaiah.
It's Matthew. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, it was prophesied of.
Yeah.
Yashra'al.
Yeah, I want Moreh, because I know you got Matthew right.
Yeah.
I want him to get the one was prophesied. And we're going to see why John or Yehukanan is asking this.
Yeah, we have Yashra'al, the 42nd chapter.
Yeshayahu, Isaiah, the 42nd chapter.
Yeah, we can go there. Let's start at verse 16. And I will bring the blind by a way that they know not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do to them, and not forsake them. They shall be turned back. They shall be turned back. They shall be greatly ashamed for trust in graven images. They say in the molded images, you are our Elohims. That's not the one though, but that was one of them. I was looking for. There's another Yeshua here.
Was it the spirit of Elohim's upon me? I don't even need to.
Yeah, that's the one too. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's very good.
That one is
This site to the one in the creek, the acceptable year of you. That's what you have, right?
that's the one that it's referring me to 61 1 to 3.
You got it?
Yeah, it's the spirit of.
Give the reference.
This is Yeshiah, chapter 61,
Isaiah 61.
verses 1 and 3.
Oh, you read. You got it?
You want to read it?
Whoever got it can read it.
Oh, no, you can read it.
Okay, okay. Let me put it in,
King James mode.
1 through 3 or 1
the scriptures mode. Which one you want? The spirit of the master Yahweh is upon me because Yahweh has anointed me to bring good news to the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to open the prison of those who are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh and the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all that mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, that the planting of Yahuwah may be glorified.
That's good right now. Now get Matthew.
The Matthew 11,
Yes.
Matthew 11, chapter 1. And it came to pass when Yeshua had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. Now when Yohanan had heard in the prison the works of Mashiach, he sent 2 of his disciples and said unto them, Are you he that should come, or do we look for another? Yahshua answered and said unto them, Go and show Yohanan again those things which you do hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached unto them, the good news preached unto them. Blessed is he whomsoever shall not be offended in me. And as they departed, Yahushua began to say unto the multitude concerning Yohanan, What went you out into the wilderness to see? Of reed shaking the wind? Continue.
That's good right there.
Yeah,
So
but I know the other scripture too, Moreh.
Okay, go ahead, Moreh.
I'll read further down enough. You still in 42, read 16 again. And I will bring the blind by a way that they know not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them, and crooked things straight. These things will I do unto them, and not forsake them. They should be turned back, and they shall be greatly ashamed that trust in graven images. They say to the molten images, You are Elohim. Hear you deaf, and look you blind, that you may see. Who is blind but my servant? Or deaf as my servant, as my messenger that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as the Father's servant? Seeing many things, but thou observest not. Opening the ears, but he heareth not. So yes, so these are all the things that the Mashiach is asking, is telling John the Baptist, Talmudim, to go tell
exactly.
him that, you know what, and then it just goes on to say that it's talking about exactly who it is, my servants.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, absolutely.
What was the scripture again?
Isaiah, the 52nd chapter, verses 16 to like 21.
42nd.
Yes. Isaiah is good too.
There's actually several good ones in Isaiah.
Right. So what we see is Yehukanan, the Mashiach could have easily answered and said, Yes, go back and tell John I am he. Nah, it doesn't work like that. He told his disciples, go back and tell John what you hear and what you see. John automatically knew what was written of Hamashiach and the one that would come and redeem the nation of Yashra'al, because he would come doing what? Bearing signs and witnesses that would follow him.
Mm-hmm.
So he automatically knew from that answer that when John would hear that he would realize this is the one. Because when he comes, when the one that's due to come, these signs and witnesses shall follow him. He will come bearing these signs. And so with that, we see that with Yehukanan, you see something took place with him and Hamashiach. This covenant is so important because everything that you see take place with the book of the covenant, remember now, there's no such thing at that time as a Levitical priesthood. So the order of the Levitical order has not been instituted yet. So Pesach, everything that we've spoken of up until this point, we can go to what they call Rosh Hashanah, the New Year. We can go to the seventh day, the Sabbath. It was already instituted before what? The book of the law. I got into a discussion with somebody where they were saying, well, if you're going to say the book of the covenant, that's what we should and we're going to operate under, that we don't need the law anymore. So what you're saying, it's all right for two men to be together or for homosexuality because that's not written. It wasn't given to Moses in the Ten Commandments. There's nothing in the Ten Commandments about homosexuality. I said, yeah, but we have an understanding even before. I said, we might not find it in the Ten Commandments, but can we find it in Scripture pre-book of the law where it emphasizes that? I said, sure we can. I said, we can go back to the creation story.
Mm-hmm.
I said, did he not create a woman for a man? I said, remember, he looked at Adam, he looked at man, and saw that what? It wasn't good for man to be alone. And with that, what did he do?
He made a helpmate for it.
He made or created a helpmate for that man. And that helpmate was called an Isha. I said, could he have not very easily duplicated or made a replica of the first being that he created?
Made him a buddy.
He could have made him a buddy. Or he could have made another man. But he didn't do that.
Also, where it says be fruitful and multiply.
Exactly.
I mean, that was the commandment.
That was good. Be fruitful and multiply.
You can't
Not
do that.
yet have we seen any man bring forth a child out of his womb. Or it ain't a womb, but it would be after he bring forth one. Because that would be a painful situation. Believe that.
He
So,
didn't say that, did he?
so what you see here, everything was already instituted before book of the law. They said, well, where in the Ten Commandments does it tell us that we can't eat pork and all this stuff? I said, it doesn't have to be. That was already instituted. I said, remember when he told who? Noah to take these animals on the ark? How did he tell them to take them? He told them to take the unclean in twos, the clean in sevens. Why would he distinguish and differentiate between unclean and two? What did I say? Did I say he told him to take the unclean in two? Okay, then I thought okay. Okay. He told him to take the unclean animals on the ark in twos. He told him to take the clean animals in sevens.
You needed more.
Right, so why would he distinguish the difference between unclean and clean and differentiate between unclean and clean? Because if they were not for consumption,
Right.
there would be no need. What were unclean animals? What was their purpose?
Actually, to eat all of the garbage and the other unclean things.
Yeah, they kept what? Your land clean.
Right. And to be food for other animals.
Right. But what we see is with the clean, because most people, they fail to realize, Yashra'al did not sacrifice all these animals and that would just eat. when they made these offerings and sacrifices, were they not consumed?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't just burn animals or just sacrifice and cut animals. That was it. Even at Pesach, we didn't just slaughter a lamb just for the blood. We know that from Hamashiach. He said, "Take you, for this is my body which was broken for you, and eat it." Take you this blood and drink it. We know it was symbolic, but still, that's what some they were what? Practicing for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, he not only that, he told them how to eat it. He said, "Don't you eat more than take more than you can consume. If it's too big for you and your family, you better get your neighbor next door to come over and help you eat it."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did he not say that?
Mm-hmm.
But were not these sacrifices or offerings? They were consumed. So he had already distinguished all before the book of the law, clean and unclean.
Mm-hmm.
The laws of what? Marriage. A woman and a man and a woman. All of this stuff. So, but you notice that all of this was established pre-book of the law? If he was saying that Abraham was righteous, he said Noah was righteous. He said Shem taught righteousness to who? His brothers. Why would he, throughout the annals of time, even before there's a Levitical order, he always point to an individual who's in a leadership position of influence, call them righteous out of all the other men? Could it be that they operate on another priestly order that was pre-Levitical?
So, question. So what the Mashiach did was he took us off and under the law and put us back under the original covenant, which was established by Abraham, then given again over to the children of the 12 tribes, and then now back into now we're back under that covenant, the original covenant, or we will be back under.
We will be back under that
Right.
covenant.
Okay.
Under what?
So then the law has no
Jurisdiction.
no jurisdiction or no. Well, basically, when I read the law, it's still a lot of things in it we still do automatically.
Right. Now look.
613. So when you say that we're not responsible for it, no, we're not responsible for that body of legislation. But at the same time, some of the things in it are still in the Ten Commandments. I mean, it's all there.
Yeah, because you had the Ten Commandments before you had that. But
Right.
but what I'm looking at, so think about this. When we said 613,
Mm-hmm.
do you not know it's very few of those six? When I said very
Yeah.
few,
That
that
we're
pertains to you.
responsible for. Right. Right.
If you were not a Levite, guess what?
Between you and
Did the Levitical laws pertain to you?
no.
Or the laws that pertain to the priest? If you were not a priest, that's what I'm saying. I said it right.
Right.
If you were not a priest, did the priestly law pertain to you?
No.
If you were not a woman, would the law pertaining to the needle, when a woman was on it, would it pertain to you? There's so many laws written in there that they do not, all of them do not pertain to one particular man, where one man is now bound by 613 laws.
Right.
No, that has never been.
Mm-hmm. But I guess what I'm saying is that now that so when you hear other Christians, or you hear Christians and people say that we're no longer under the law, I mean, I guess there's some truth to it then. Or is it,
Right, okay then.
so we're no longer bound by the law.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Israel always had these laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not always, but once they were given.
Right.
What happened to the nation of Yashra'al when they were in captivity?
Oh, they lost all of it. They lost all of their whole everything, all of that.
So if the Torah or the book of the law was a body of legislation or a constitution for Israel,
Mm-hmm.
where would that constitution or body of legislation have jurisdiction?
In the land.
In the land.
Mm-hmm.
Show me at any time throughout history where the nation of Yashra'al was in captivity
Mm-hmm.
and those laws usurped or superseded the laws of the nation they were in captivity to.
That's great. That's good. Yeah.
Somebody got to show me that.
Mm-hmm. Know it.
That's why when it came to circumcision, the nation of Yashra'al, when they broke that covenant, those 40 years in the wilderness, they did not circumcise. Now that the promises are being fulfilled through Abraham, now circumcision, it starts again. But was it for the covenant that was broken that when they knew when they broke it, they automatically stopped circumcising? Now circumcision had become what? At that point, it became what? A right to enter the land.
Mm-hmm.
It was no longer the sign of the token to that covenant that was broken.
Right. Jeez, that's good.
So if you're not in the land under jurisdiction of that law, so now we can see with circumcision, now it goes from the covenant, now it becomes a part of a body of legislation of law, and this law pertains to what? It has jurisdiction when?
In the land.
In the land.
Mm-hmm.
That's why everybody talking about the nation of Yashra'al was so strong when we talk about the Maccabean revolt and wars, and we talk about how you had certain individuals, how when it came to Nebuchadnezzar, they wouldn't do this and they wouldn't bow down and do that.
Mm-hmm.
The nation of Yashra'al were in those lands under the Babylonians, under the Assyrians, under the Persian Mede. Why?
They wouldn't keep it coming.
The same thing that now all of a sudden you got individuals who now they got some understanding of who they are, and they understand when these prophecies end, now they're making a stand. But as a whole, the nation of Yashra'al were in those lands for disobedience.
Right.
For bow down to those very things that he told them not to.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're in jurisdiction under somebody else's laws, now you're being what? Forced to uphold those laws. And that's what we use, I like to use for the example. Matter of fact, can you get that scripture, Moreh, with Peter and the temple tax? Let's take a look at this and we're going to see something.
Mark 12:16.
Oh, you got it, Moreh?
Yeah.
We're going to start seeing Moreh to read Mark. Mark 12?
12:16.
Yes, 12:16.
Mark 12:16. Is that starting at the beginning of that whole dialogue, Mark? Or start at 13? Because, oftentimes we read as a people, It's one thing to recite
That would
words.
be, 13.
Yeah, it's one thing to recite words, but I always tell people, look beyond those words and pay attention to the language and what's going on. Always know Israel's position, where they are, and the position they hold when you're reading. Because, we read the New Testament. Most people read the New Testament and read it without realizing that Israel is in captivity. I don't care about them being in Jerusalem. They are under Roman occupation. They're captives in a land that used to be theirs. That's very important, and it should be noted and understood for what? Educational purposes. Go ahead, Moreh.
Mark, the 12th chapter, verse 13. And they sent unto him certain of the Pharisees and of the Herodians to catch him in his words. And when they were come, they said unto him, Master, we know that thou art true, and carest for no man, for thou regardest not the persons of men, but teachest the way of Elohim in truth. Is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar or not? Shall we give or shall we not give? But he knoweth their hypocrisy, and said unto them.
Stop right there. He said, but he knoweth of their what? Hypocrisy. Go ahead.
Why tempt you me? Bring me a penny that I may see it.
He said, bring me a what?
A penny.
A penny that I may see it.
And they brought it. And he said unto them, Whose image and inscription? And they said unto him, Caesar. And the Mashiach answered and said unto them, Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar, and to Elohim the things that are Elohim's. And they marveled at him.
He said, render unto who?
Caesar, things that are Caesar.
The things that are what?
Caesar.
Caesar. Where were they when he was saying all this?
Land of Israel.
They were in the land. They was in the land. Is there any more after that part?
It talks about the circumcision and the resurrection. They came unto him the Sadducees, and he said, There is no resurrection. And they asked him, saying, Master, Moses ordered to us, if a man's brother died, that it goes into sin.
Okay, then. That's another one where he goes into an analogy talking about the king and the children of the king paying tribute to the king. But remember, they said that this was taking place where? In Jerusalem. If Israel were in their land and their laws were governing the land, would Israel be paying tribute or a tax or temple to Caesar? Why are they paying tribute or a tax to Caesar?
They're in captivity.
Because they're in captivity. The laws of the governing or occupying force, their laws supersede anybody else's laws. That's just like us here in America trying to say that Torah supersedes the United States Constitution. We would have to know better than that. Do you know how many instances in Torah where it talks about putting a person to death? You can have an unruly son that's just a headache to his parent and the community. And he will not stop. Over and over again, the elders are speaking to him. It gets to a certain point. What does the scriptures say do with that son?
Stone him.
Take him out and stone him. If I pull that number at right here in the United States, where we are, what's going to happen? I'm going to jail for what? Murder. So can I take the Torah up in the jail and say, I was following the Torah, this is what it said do? Take him out and stone him to death?
They might put you to death.
Exactly. There's a possibility. I know I'm going to get life in prison, but at the same time, I might get the death penalty. Why isn't Torah going to what? Back me in a situation like that? Because the United States Constitution is what has jurisdiction in this land. Is what I'm saying making any kind of sense?
Mm-hmm.
The law is a constitution that governs Israel and Israel in its land only. Now, are there anything written in the law that we can take and we can learn from it? By us being a mishpachah or a family here in a small community, there are things that are statutes that are written in the law that we can actually take and solve matters of disagreement between us as being brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can do that. There's laws of restoration and retribution. If I take something or damage something of yours, we can go right to what? The statutes written in the law, and we can resolve that matter. I restore what I took or damaged of yours. And not only that, in order to keep the fellowship and love, not only do I restore it, but to show that I'm truly remorseful for what I've done, I give you an increase on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows to what? Walk in covenant relationship and fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. When I say that we're not under the law, that doesn't mean that there were not things that were written that we cannot look at and see and use to keep us in fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at this body of legislation in the United States. A lot of times it doesn't offer the same. But Torah does not have jurisdiction over the United States Constitution in this land. And therefore, what I'm saying when I say we're no longer under law, if you're going to operate under it, you have to operate under all of it. But you cannot do that here. Do y'all know how easy it would be to operate under the Torah in our land with us being a nation and it being our constitution?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be very easy to do?
Weird.
Maybe, because our people still rebellious too. They still give a hard time.
Right.
He did.
And what I'm saying, it should be easy to
He
do.
did real quick.
Yeah, it should be pretty easy to
Tell me you
do.
don't want to wash the dishes. I did.
You got something more?
No, that's the reason why when the adversary took the Mashiach at the top of the mountain, and he showed him all of the kingdoms of the world.
All the kingdoms.
And he said, listen, you know what, this was given unto me. And he was able to give it to the Mashiach. To let us know now was that, you know, there's somebody else now that's sitting in this seat here.
There's somebody else sitting in this seat.
You know? So we definitely got to follow.
He showed him all the kingdoms of the world. If the adversary had that to offer, that means that Muhammad Shia or Jerusalem or we didn't have it.
So now, if we're not under the law and we're not within covenant, a covenant relationship. No, because Yahusha said, if you love me, keep my commandments.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, okay.
But what was going on at that time when he said that? You got to remember, and I keep telling y'all, I want y'all to pay attention to what I tell y'all. When it comes to this captivity right here, this captivity here is different from any captivity that Israel has ever been in. Why? This is the only captivity that we were totally dismantled, and to the point where they dismantled and dispersed us, so we don't have our tribe names, We said with the tribe of Judah.
Mm-hmm.
Can we 100% confirm that?
No.
They totally dismantled us as a nation. They dismantled us to the point, so when Yahuwah said, let the wheat and the tares grow together, he said, when I come, I'll do the separating.
Mm-hmm.
Because you ever seen wheat?
Looks just like the tail.
You ever seen tares? They look identical until a certain point. When they mature, guess what? Only then you can tell the difference between the two.
One has a seed.
And he told what? He told the reapers that unless you what?
To root up the wheat with the tares.
Unless you root up the wheat with the tares.
Mm-hmm.
He said, He said, let them grow together. They asked, should we go what?
Take them out.
Should we go reap or glean it?
Mm-hmm.
He said, no, unless you root up the wheat with the tares. He said, let them grow together. And he said, I will do what? You know, he said, he will do the separating.
Mm-hmm.
He knows his.
That's so good.
And this is why we have to realize you have to know what Torah was and is in the first place to have the correct understanding, get an understanding. There are so many things that we're trying to do and we're making a mockery of something because we're half doing it. Because first of all, a lot of things we try to do, you couldn't do it unless you were in the land in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You were not even allowed to do it outside of the land. Then secondly, you're dealing with a bastardized language trying to gain understanding of what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Even when you want to go to the Hebrew, or what is quote unquote so-called the Hebrew,
Mm-hmm.
you still have an understanding from a Gentile or what I want to say.
Fake Jew.
Yeah, not on TV, but from a people who were outside of Israel that they didn't even or don't even speak the original language.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all of this, what you're doing is you're gasping at a gnat and swallowing a camel, as they say. We get into the most arguments of Torah and who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong. The feast days, is this the correct day or is that the correct day? We fall out over all of these things because, first of all, you're not going to have that understanding. We're commemorating, and that's all we're doing. None of us is keeping Passover. None of us is keeping first fruit. We talk about leaven. None of us keeping unleavened. How? You can think about this. Why was it important to keep these things in our land? Because first of all, your land was set apart. It was the land he chose to do what? He put his name on. Don't you know you can do any of that stuff in America? Why? Do you know how many dead bodies you walk upon every day? You forget, do y'all know how many millions of people are buried in these lands? You remember you had what we call Native America, who had burial grounds and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how much of that stuff was excavated and they built these cities and these lands upon? You know you wouldn't find that in Jerusalem. Matter of fact, we didn't even put people in the ground. We had tombs and stuff. Think about what we're saying. But see, I'm the one. Y'all call me that reality checker. I love to give people a reality check because we just will not think. We outthink ourselves. We want to be so deep and so smart. So fundamental things we don't even consider and look at. You know good well we can probably do that stuff here. Everywhere you step, you're stepping on a grave. You know, anything pertaining to the dead, it will defile anything we do. They weren't even slaughtering and killing them animals in the land. They had to do that stuff outside of Jerusalem. Altar was not inside the land.
I mean, what do you think would happen? Because during the Feast of Tabernacles, all right, 70 bulls needed to be slaughtered. If we took 70 bulls for 7 days,
That's a
you're
lot of
slaughtering
blood.
them in that backyard back there. All right, in that backyard back there, you would have police and everybody, man, listen, you would no longer be able to live in this house anymore. I mean,
Just the order and everything
along.
along.
Father's song in a strange land.
Yep, you can't sing on strange land. And this is something our people don't want to hear because they've been taught something so long, but I don't know what to tell them.
Because you actually, to do these festivals, you need a priest.
You need a priest. You have to have a priest.
We don't know who they are.
You have to. So if you're going to do these things, you cannot do them without what?
You can't do them half.
A priest. So if you're going to keep Levitical laws and stuff like that, that they were authorized to be over, you have to have them. If you're going to operate under that, you have to have Levites. That's why the book of Hebrews was so important. It's a since there was a change in what? The priesthood. It was necessary that need to be what? A change in what? The law. What's the change in the law? If the priesthood went back from the Levitical back to the Melchizedek order, you're going to now go from the Levitical laws back to the Melchizedek covenant. The laws under that, which were the book of the covenant, 10 Commandments. Can you not keep the 10 Commandments? I don't care where you are at in this earth, in captivity or not.
You don't need a priest. We talked about that.
Exactly. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's the truth. And that's why I think when I first started doing that lesson about the book of the covenant versus the book of the law, I said we're not throwing the book of the law away.
Right.
Remember when I talked about juxtapositioning and juxtaposing? When you look at the two, we know we follow this. But is there anything here that we can glean from and use that today as well? There are many statutes that were written in that 613, with the 613, that if we are a Knesset or a community, what do you think we would use to solve these matters and issues that come amongst or might come up amongst us as brethren?
You would use the book of the law.
I shouldn't have to call, if we in a community, we have one mindset, and we also will walk in the same path in the same way.
Right.
If we have a disagreement or a matter, shouldn't I be able to go in the scriptures to help solve that matter? Should I have to, what would I look like calling the police here? Hey, on you, my brother. You say you love me, I say I love you. But as soon as we have a disagreement, I want to call in an outside force to govern a matter where we have something written here.
Don't take your matter to an unjust judge.
Yeah, he said I should take my brother to an unjust judge. He said because if they judge you, guess what?
Yeah.
You won't be fit to judge the work of the nation, or Yashra'al is going to judge the nations.
Right.
But if I bring the nations in to judge you, I'm not fit. But we have something that is written that we can glean from. The Torah was never a bad thing. It's the people that were bad. There was nothing bad with what was written. It was the people that he had to impose something on them to help govern them and guide them. You know, you can't just freely, openly walk in rebellion. You have to have something to constrain you, even if it's by force. Because guess what happens when you become unlawful or unruly? The only option for you is to be put to death.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that can what? Contain you.
Mm-hmm.
You know we can't have a land full of rebellious people.
Now, Yashra'al. Shoot.
Like so a lot of the law was real good. I mean, if it got to the point where I lived next to Zabud, he has his acreage of land, however that is. I moved the landmarks.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do with that?
Look.
You know, so it's good to have the law.
It's good to have it.
So we have to, just like we have talked about so many times before, itemize and show the people what is good.
Exactly.
You know, and so if my ox broke out of the gate and gored Zabud's cow to death, you know, there's supposed to be some compensation behind that.
Right.
Exactly.
And so these things, just balances and weights, not cheating one another, and things like that, all those things were real good. But it's actually outlined in the 10 when you talk about loving your brother as yourself.
As yourself.
You know,
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's all outlined
It's
there.
all outlined there.
So, yeah, I see it. I mean, I definitely see it.
And with that being said, I know we over the hour mark on.
Yeah, we 2 hours.
Yeah, but this is good. This is good.
Okay.
You know?
I never did get to
You know, from what
other
I've read, you would never wanted us to have these priests and judges and all of that. We were supposed to be a nation of priests, nation of kings, from what I've seen. Remember, he didn't want to give them.
we were supposed to be a
he didn't
kingdom
wanna give
of
them a
priests.
king. That's what I mean. Well, I'm sorry, I meant a kingdom. He didn't want to give them Saul. They begged for Saul.
Because you got to look at something. We ended up being, when Adam fell, it was a depiction of the nation of Yashra'al. We fell.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not know the nation of Yashra'al was chosen to govern the rest of the world?
Mm-hmm.
Not fall to becoming a nation. We went fair from being a kingdom to a nation. What happened when he said you're a peculiar people, a special people unto him, a kingdom of priests. A kingdom of priests. The nation of Yashra'al are supposed to walk in the same office and hold the same office as the high priest of the Melchizedek order, which is Hamashiach. We're supposed to be kings and priests. He's the only one that will ever walk this earth able to wear the title king and priest. And that's the order we under.
Mm-hmm.
We fell up under an order to now, we're a nation who has a king and who has a priest.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was governed through one of those individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And they only had jurisdiction where?
In the land.
Over the nation Yashra'al.
Mm-hmm.
The original order was good. When we go back to when he said he called them to be a peculiar people, you got that, Moreh? A nation of what? A kingdom of priests? He said what? Above all people
On the first of the year.
upon the face of the earth. You will never just have jurisdiction to govern in the have a king or a priest, a high priest, to govern over you in the land. The position you're supposed to walk in, you're supposed to wear the title king and priest, and Israel governs the entire globe.
Yep, you want it?
Yes, Moreh. Thank you.
Okay, we got two scriptures. We're gonna go to First Deuteronomy 7:6. Um, 7:6. For thou art a set apart people unto Yahuwah thy Elohim. Yahuwah thy Elohim hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all the people that are upon the face of the earth.
A special people unto himself, above all the people upon the face of the earth.
Right, and then you have 1 Peter 2:9. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and a set apart nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness unto his marvelous light.
Israel was always chosen in positions to govern the nations, to be over everybody on the face of this earth. We know that when we get to Revelation. When the New Jerusalem descends, it comes down with measurement exact. 100 and what? 44,000 cubits?
Mm-hmm.
That's just a representation of the governing body that's going to govern what? You know, he told them not to even measure the outer part. That's the governing body that's going to what? Govern the rest of the earth. Not only that, didn't it come down surrounded by 4 walls?
That's right.
In each wall, 3 gates. Inscribed in those gates are what? The names of the 12 tribes of Israel. Because this is the governing body that will govern the rest of the earth. He giving you the picture right now. You got Israel and you have the rest of the earth. And he said his law shall go forth where? Out of Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going out of Jerusalem, that means it's going to be governing what?
Will be governed Jerusalem.
Because when we read in the scriptures, they're contained where? Inside of Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have jurisdiction outside of Jerusalem. I mean, it's just a plain, it's right there. But at this time, we're going to do one more lesson next week. And we're going to finish, I talked about Passover. I didn't give it to Shavuot, first fruit, Shavuot, day of, unleavened, atonement, and all that stuff. But we're going to finish because we have to show how all of these things were already under the Melchizedek order before there was anything called the Book of the Law. This was already into play. So with no further ado, let's stand and we're going to have prayer. And we are going to break that natural bread. That's some bread and cornbread. Y'all we are going to turn and face the east and look towards Jerusalem as we pray, and we're going to let Moreh blow the shofar. You can blow it from there if you want to, Moreh. And then Akif Zabud is going to pray us out.
set apart day. Day that you have chose, Father, for us to learn about you, for us to rest, and for us to just be able to partake in you. We thank you for the gift of your Son. I mean, the more I learn about him, the more we learn about him, the more we are in awe of him. And your word said that when we truly realize and remember David, our king, that we would be so emotionally distraught for the way we've treated him and the things that we've done, that it would be like in mourning for a child of ours who have been killed. And Father, we do. I mean, oh man, this thing is just, it's so complicated, the things that he's done, but yet so simple for us to understand. But as a hard-headed people, we just don't get it. The only way I feel that I can do just in honoring him, Father, is just to say, our Father, who art in heaven, holy is thy name, set apart is thy name. Thy kingdom please come, and thy will be done on earth as it is in Shamarine. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine and thine alone is the glory, and thine alone is the power, forever and ever. Come, Yahuwah. Come, Yahusha. Please come and get us out of this land, that we may go back in our own land, that we may be able to worship you in spirit and truth the way you told us to do it. Get us out of here. Please come. Do not tarry, not 1 second longer than you need to. We know that you're anxious, and we are here. And we thank you, we praise you, we magnify you, we lift you up. And those who couldn't make it, Father, we pray that you would just bless them, just meet them where they are. Those who were on Facebook, Father, we ask that you help them to be able to feel what we felt here, Father, that we may understand and know who you are. And again, let your will be done, period. Let your will be done. In your son Yahushua's name we pray, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.